professor who appeared on the panel who had signed a letter to the Sunday Times denouncing Israeli aggression before she was invited to be on the panel. Goldstone himself said that, for example, people like that, had it been a judicial panel, would have been recused, would have been asked to leave the panel. He himself said it was not a judicial investigation. It was a fact-finding mission. There's a difference. It was not a judicial investigation at all.
I don't think we've actually had an answer to your original question. Was it accurate? And I think what would be very helpful for me as somebody who's got great sympathies for both sides in this conflict. How else could I do that living in this country, in the Northwest Europe? Nice to be living in Northwest Europe. I'd like to actually to hear the two people who actually do know, which are the two people sitting on your left and your right, what they feel about the criticisms of their own side. So yes, what you've said about the criticisms of Israelis, I'd like to hear what you think about the criticisms of Hamas and what you feel about the criticisms of, whether they're accurate, the criticisms of your side.
It's not an unfair point, Sam, because obviously Hamas is criticising the report. Richard's absolutely right. I mean, they don't come off scot-free in any of this. What do you make of the specific criticism about Hamas that they were using civilians as shields, so that even though nobody doubts there were Israeli weapons targeting, but Hamas were using these human shields to protect them? What do you make of that?
That's the Israeli propaganda. Israelis are brilliant, and I love their minds when it comes to propaganda. Israelis are the most brilliant guys in this entire world in terms of propaganda and producing these allegations regarding the human shields. As you know, Gaza is a very small place. People are living everywhere. It's more than 1.5 million, and even the numbers more than this. They are living in a very small and tiny place. For example, the Israeli spokesman said, okay, we have sent the Palestinians as Hamas and MMS to their mobiles, asking them to leave their houses. We have dropped thousands of leaflets. We have done this and that. When we have told them through the radio stations, we have told them through the TV. Yes, they were right. They have done these things.
But what did Mr. Goldstone say about it?
But the point is, when they have asked the people to leave their houses, they didn't open the Gaza Strip, they didn't open the sea so the people could flee by the sea, or they haven't opened their borders to have the people in.
What did Goldstone say about that? What was his view of this?
About what exactly?
About the shields, human shields. What does he say about that?
Well, the executive summary, he's saying that there was no concrete evidence of that at all. Fine. Although he's critical of Hamas.
Yeah,
but
and
what was
the actual criticism of Hamas? I think what I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear also from Eric, also from that side. I mean, if you agree, what I'm trying to get at is, it seems to me that if you agree with the criticisms of the opposite side, then to an extent that means you have to accept the criticisms of your own side. And that's what I just wanted to see. If he was right in criticizing the Israelis, then maybe he was right in criticizing Hamas. If he was right in criticizing Hamas, then maybe he was right in criticizing Israelis. That's what my argument is.
Yeah, I mean, as I understand it, Sameh, Hamas has agreed to conduct an investigation so far, haven't they? I don't know how far it's going to go and how biased or unbiased it's going to be, but they have agreed to act on the report, which is a UN requirement.
Yeah, and not to forget that about the first point that we have started with, is that Israel refused to cooperate with this report. Israel, which is a country and recognized by the international law, and not Hamas, as they say, the gang or the group of fighters. Hamas is not a country. Israel should behave itself. Israel is a country, and they said it's a democracy. A democracy should be submissive for the international law, should be submissive for the United Nations resolutions. As for the human shields, again, there were never human shields used in Gaza. If you go to the footages and you see what the Israelis were broadcasting, it was a big lie, in which some old footages that were used some years ago, or they're being killed by the Israelis some years ago, they have released them as part of their propaganda to say the Palestinians use these things as a human shield. And there is a case in the report and a live story of the Samoni family, when the Israelis were all the time saying that some militants were around the house. And it was untrue, because when the rocket came to that house, it has hit them directly. And I wonder if the Israelis do or do not have the capabilities and the radars and all these machines, the satellites, to indiscriminate or discriminate their military targets.
I mean, that was part of the point, Eric, that President Carter made, wasn't it? That with these precision bombings, they're supposed to come down and tell you the colour of your spectacles. So how come they're taking out the American school, for example? So what went wrong with this? I mean, I don't know whether you dispute any of the factual findings.
I dispute many of the factual findings of the report. Yeah. And one reason why I can't really answer what Richard had asked, since he asked a good question. I mean, I'm happy to criticize Israel. I can go on for hours criticizing Israel and its behavior. But that you're saying if you accept that the report was fundamentally balanced, let's say you criticize your own side. I don't believe the report is balanced or accurate. I do not believe this is an accurate report. The criticisms of Hamas are very limited. I mean, Hamas came out of this smelling much cleaner than it should have. I think it's not remotely even-handed. It doesn't show the Israelis and Hamas being equal. It shows the Israelis as carrying out war crimes. It doesn't accuse Hamas of carrying out war crimes. So I don't accept that at all.
I mean, any specific examples you think where the report, I mean, I understand the point you make about it not being a balanced report in your view, but are there sections of it where you think, well, you know, from what Israelis have told me, this is clearly untrue within
Some Israelis have told me it wasn't well documented. First of all, I mean, my guess is the vast majority of people who watch this program, people in the audience or in the panel, are well aware of what the report says, but are completely unaware of Israel's rebuttals and responses to it, having read what the Israeli argument actually is. Israel says that the evidence that was taken entirely from Hamas-sponsored Palestinians, that the NGOs, let me give you an example, the best evidence they have, the best evidence you have is Human Rights Watch, right? Human Rights Watch thoroughly condemned Israel's aggression.
What about Amnesty? They've said that Israel committed war crimes.
I'll start with
Human Rights Watch. What about all these organizations?
Let me
not Hamas.
I brought up Human Rights Watch. Let me finish. Human Rights Watch is used by Goldstone to give lots of evidence. He cites it many, many times. He sits on the board of Human Rights Watch. I know Human Rights Watch because I worked for it when it was founded, when it was called Helsinki Watch. I was on staff. I know Human Rights Watch very well. I respect it as an organization. But its founder, Robert Bernstein, was a leading human rights advocate in America. Bernstein says Human Rights Watch totally screwed up on this and has a bias against Israel, and his evidence is not credible, and he publicly, in the New York Times, denounced Human Rights Watch.
Before I come back to the audience, after you've studied this report in detail, you've written about it in The Guardian, how do you think some of the points that Eric's made, which are made by many commentators, that this report is biased, is not accurate, in your experience as a journalist who studied this, I mean, do you think that's a fair observation?
I don't think it's fair. I think the fundamental problem with Eric's position is the fact that Israel rejected this report before it was written. They refused to cooperate with it. If they have problems with the quality of the evidence, why did they not cooperate in the process? Why did they not invest in ensuring that it was accurate? I think it's difficult to sustain that argument when Israel was determined to oppose the report from the outset. And I think that undermines any arguments about its accuracy. I'm not an expert on the region, so I would defer to people who do have expertise on the region judging the accuracy. But I do know about the process, and I think that the process is one that it's fair to support. I don't think there's any evidence of bias in the process or of lack of expertise or competence in the process. But I agree there were problems, and that in large part had to do with Israel's refusal to cooperate. So I think that makes that position quite difficult.
Thanks, Safir. I'd like to bring in some members of the audience. Gentleman in the front row. Yes, sir. What would you like to say?
I have a question probably specifically for Eric Lee, but perhaps the panel could share it too. But if the report is inaccurate in any way, isn't Israel partly responsible for that by refusing to cooperate in the first place?
Yes, I mean, Richard, do you think Israel should have said, okay, this is going to happen, so we're going to have our say and put our cards on the table for the international community?
I think probably that would have been a tactically a much wiser move than what happened, but maybe they had their reasons. How can I work out what their reasons are? But I do find it unhelpful.
I mean, it has made it harder for people like you, Eric, who try in good faith to defend what's going on, but I mean, if you can't actually point to them and say, well, they've cooperated and they've just been found unfairly.
No, I think in this case they were absolutely right not to cooperate. Look, when the Gaza War took place, I sat in this room and I criticized Israel for not allowing reporters in. I thought reporters should have been allowed to cover Gaza. I'm eager to disagree with the Israeli government when I get a chance. In this case, this is the UN Human Rights Council. This body has spent more time denouncing Israel than all the other countries of the world put together. This is not some objective, fair body that was sent. And this is why the European Union, all the countries of the European Union, and the United States, and most of the democracies in the world did not cooperate with this. And Mary Robinson, who was asked to be on it, former UN Commissioner for Human Rights, also said, this is a political body, I will not be part of this. And the report has been rejected by the United States and by the European Union. So this is not a balanced, fair report. And Israel knew that was going to happen because the body that commissioned it is not fair and balanced.
Before I just come to you, Sammy, Katie, you want to put our first question? You wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think perhaps we shouldn't be looking at the accuracy, but more about the methodology behind the whole report in the first place. It's clearly targeted towards, obviously, Palestinian atrocities, which is absolutely dreadful in the first place, but it doesn't actually contain within the question of the report towards Israelis being, harmed in this terrible situation. So I would question methodology as opposed to the accuracy in the first place.
Do you think, Sam, that both the Israeli government and Hamas representatives should have been more positive with this commission of inquiry? It was going to happen anyway. Wouldn't it have been better to put their case?
Well, I guess in Gaza, everyone was positive. It's not only Hamas, because he spoke about the organization working in Gaza, and most of them are leftists, not Hamas, and pro-Hamas guys. Most of them are from international organizations. If you've seen the UN spokesman, Christopher Guinness, and All the guys there, they're all the time saying that there is a humanitarian crisis and Israel is committing war crimes. So there was something before the report. And if you go back to history, and you will see that in 2002 there was a massacre in Jenin. And when the investigator came, Israel was angry at the guy who came from the United Nations and said there was a tremendous atrocity in this place. And this Mantuto, and he's a renowned person as Richard Goldstone, and he did the same investigation with Bet Hanun massacre, and he approved that Israel committed war crimes, and then Israel attacked him. So whenever and whatever there is something against Israel, we will see all the people getting angry, and that's the truth. We have to look at the footages, we have to look at the reports, and we have to look maybe at the background of the war